pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda, the amended agenda. I need a second. All in favor? Aye. Public comments. And correspondence to the board. We have a thank you letter, a card from Teacher Warehouse. It says, thank you for supporting us and all the other teachers and students in Johnson County. Okay, and recognitions tonight.
So tonight we brought in a motley crew for you guys to be able to recognize. Honestly, these individuals work tirelessly throughout the school year, putting in many hours, obviously during the day, after school, before school, weekends, evenings. It just never stops for them. So we would like to recognize our administration team tonight, and just personally, with Dr. Wheeler and I, we'd like to say thank you to you guys and for all that you do and how you support us and the vision and mission of Mount Oshkosh Schools. And this place would not obviously exist or run as well as it does without you. So we'd like to recognize you guys tonight and have you come up and take a picture with the board. And we truly do thank you for your service and what you do for our kids every single day. So thank you very much. Let's give them a big round of applause.
I just got done
So we obviously have two other recognitions tonight, and our second set of recognitions is going to go out to our Triad Junior Air Force ROTC. And if you guys haven't had an opportunity to see what has happened in just 1 year, it truly is outstanding. And obviously, the Air Force himself has decided this as well, because they have given an overall Air Force Junior ROTC Outstanding Instructor of the Year to our very own Randy Johnson. And Randy obviously works tirelessly, as well as Colonel Talley. And these two gentlemen have turned this program around within 1 year. And the focus that they have on preparing our students for the Air Force is unbelievable. It's outstanding what they're doing in there. Just the change of direction that has happened, we truly do appreciate them. So they weren't able to be here tonight. Both of them are actually out of the state. So they weren't able to come in to receive the recognition, but we do truly appreciate them and all that they do. And our next set of recognitions, actually, they are able to be here tonight, at least a few of them. We have our state champion Lady Panther track team, so we would like to recognize them tonight. We have 3 of these young ladies here tonight, and then also Coach Rich Johnson. Obviously, it's been a long time since we've been able to have a state champion, and these individuals have done something. It's been over 30 years, so I think we have a video tonight to even commemorate exactly how long it's been. And so we're going to pause just a little bit, let you see the video, and then we will we'll bring the young ladies and Coach Johnson up to be able to recognize them. That was a great call, first base.
No, no. Have you guys know any board members were on board last time?
If you guys can come on up, we'll do a picture with the board and,
We knew Tom would know. Tom, he is encyclopedia for, non-officers. Truly, ladies, we do think that the trophy came home. Congratulations. Come on up. We would, love to recognize you in front of the board, get a picture as well.
so a couple things as everybody comes through. First of all, congratulations again, and Coach Johnson. You know, pace yourself as a new coach in the district. You know, state championship first year, and of course we know what you did with football as well. But we appreciate your leadership and appreciate how you run your program. Ladies, you not only perform extremely well as state champions, but you do so with character and class. You do a great job of representing us. So thank you. Hot off the press, our United States House of Representatives member Vicki Hartzler will be doing a resolution on the floor this Friday for you guys, and then we'll get copies of those to you. So we kind of leapfrogged over our state and went straight to DC, and we'll be sure and get those to you and have them organized along with a mini trophy for your team. So we're proud of you guys, and we'll go on up and grab a picture.
And the trophies look great with the ladies, but we also have t-shirts for them tonight. We have our state championship and of course all the names on the back. So congratulations, ladies. Great job.
Very fast. We're very fast.
I didn't realize what was going on.
Congratulations.
It's been a long time since that's
We have.
Ladies will have you come up as well. Push you guys forward. We'll try to squeeze a little under that.
All right, that's great. Second.
Hard to believe you got
That was great. That's all we got for tonight's meeting. No. Okay. All right, the principal and director's reports are on there.
I just have a comment to add on that. We did have a report that I got in late, which was our tech director's report. Just going to pull up that, if you would not have had a chance to see that yet. This is what their office looks currently like with our new inventory in. So just want to send an appreciation to Mr. Davis and team for getting that process and ready to roll when kids return in August. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. MSBA report.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of June. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the status of the State Board of Education. New Missouri Governor Mike Parson now has the opportunity to fill 6 of the 8 seats on the state board. 5 of those seats are open since the Missouri Senate did not confirm the individuals nominated by former Governor Greitens. The term for the 6th seat expires at the end of this month. The state board has not been able to function for the past 6 months due to a lack of a quorum. Interim Commissioner Dr. Roger Dorson told an audience at MSBA's recent leadership summit, the unprecedented situation has put some issues on hold, including the approval of the latest version of the Missouri School Improvement Program that determines the accreditation status of Missouri's public school districts. Dorson said even when the state board has a quorum, the administrative rules process means it's likely to be several months before the new MSIP program is formally adopted.
One of the things that, besides when we get a board together to be able to have a meeting, it's not going to be as simple as, okay, we have a board now, we can go start the administrative rule process, which, by the way, most of you may understand that it takes about 9 months for administrative rule to go through the process. So it's not like something that, even if we have a board tomorrow, that have a board meeting tomorrow and approve the process, it's still like a 9-month process to get going.
State Board of Education member Dr. Vic Lenz also participated on the panel at the Leadership Summit, and he said it's critical that the State Board of Education remain independent of partisan politics.
I've heard people talk about the local board. When I was on the local board, the newspaper asked me, what party do you represent? I said, it doesn't matter what party. This is an apolitical job. I'm not going to even mention political party. Nobody knew until I thought I had to tell somebody when the governor asked me to consider this a job, what party I would represent. And I still don't consider being even on the state board that I'm a Republican or a Democrat. I'm here for kids. That's what it's all about. That's the kind of people we should be on the board. But we don't want a stacked board that starts looking at things politically. That's going to ruin education.
Lenz is a former president of MSBA and a former member of the Lindbergh Board of Education. The new president of the Missouri School Boards Association is Mike Pratt of the Gasconade County R1 Board of Education in Herman. He assumed the role of president at the end of the Leadership Summit after serving as president-elect this past year. He says he's looking forward to his role on the MSBA leadership team.
As I started as president, part of the team We will face many challenges in the upcoming year. We will meet those challenges with great strength. But you know what I really look forward to? I really look forward to all the successes that our students, our teachers, administrators, and our boards will have in the upcoming year.
State officers elected at the June Delegate Assembly included President-elect Rhonda Gilstrap of the Blue Springs Board of Education and Vice President Linda Doherty of the Nixa Board of Education. MSBA presented individual board members with awards for achieving advanced, master's, and distinguished certification levels during the Leadership Summit. 20 school boards were recognized as outstanding boards of education for 2018, and 24 school boards achieved MSBA's Governance Team Award. One of the keynote speakers at this year's Leadership Summit was Virginia Jacobs, the Chief Equity and Member Services Officer for the National School Boards Association. Jacobs told school board members attending the Leadership Summit it's important for them to hold themselves accountable for the success of all students, even in a challenging educational environment.
First of all, don't give up. Be relentless when you're talking about policies that you're developing for students. They're accountable for outcomes. That's the short, that's it. You're accountable for what happens to a student's life. When you have them for that 7 hours during the day, that should change their lives. That should be the place that they find comfort. That should be the place that they find that they have an opportunity in this world.
She said individual school board members can be accountable through what she called the power of I.
The power of I is really taking that opportunity to look at yourself. Look in the mirror. What can I do as an individual to change a child's life? And that is really important because we do think of school boards as being a governing body, and that's true. But individual school board members have to hold themselves accountable for outcomes for kids. And so the power of I is really looking at how you can make a change and how you can impact your school district.
She added it takes a lot of courage and determination to assume the responsibility of serving on a school board in today's environment. That's it for this month of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Next up is Superintendent Report.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate you coming in the summer to be here. A couple of things just right off the bat I want to mention also as follow-up to recognizing our sports team for track. I want to mention that our FCCLA and FBLA teams are headed to nationals this week, and excited for them to compete on the national level on an academic program. So congratulations to them. Also, I want to just briefly share a memo that we received from NAPAS. I did have the opportunity to sit down with our director yesterday, as well as our policy advocate, just to talk about impact date. But the good news is this is a big increase this year, $50 million in basic support plus $2 million in federal properties. That marks the largest increase that we've seen in some time. And it came at a time where impact aid was really being challenged. So we consider this a big win and a good place to kick off our efforts to continue to focus on that program. Report-wise, I did head back in from Washington today. I joined Springers from Washington Air Force Base, as well as our state military advocate, Joe Driscoll, at the Association of Defense Communities Summit in Washington. Had the opportunity to tell the Valdosta STEM story on what's going on over the last couple of years with our advanced placement program, as well as our robotics and our new program coming in with our blended online learning through Edmonton at Options Academy. So we're excited to get to tell that story and talk about how here in Valdosta, working with our partners at Whiteman Air Force Base, that we're bringing new opportunities in front of our students. In that trip, we also had an opportunity to meet with folks from Senator Blunt's office, got to speak with him briefly, and also had significant time with folks from Secretary Wilson's staff, as well as meeting with Vicki Hartster and her staff. So Valdosta is definitely on the minds of our congressional delegation, and they continue to pledge their support in helping our students, our school district, and the readiness of White Air Force Base. The two strands that I would bring back from that ADC conference, the first one that gets most closely to the job that we do is Secretary Wilson and the attendees continue to focus on the quality of K-12 education, not just to take care of our students, but they are talking in terms of education being a readiness issue. So it continues to be at the front of mind and of not just our airmen, but also our military leaders. And it's an interesting time where all of the realm and scope of what goes on in the military regarding readiness and appropriations, that education continues to be the discussion points in a wide array of meetings. So that was encouraging to know that they're really focusing on our students and what we can do for them. The second strand that stood out is the broad conversation about public-private and public-public partnerships on how multi-agencies can collaborate together to stretch dollars and get more from less. So that was a really neat theme, and it's everything from energy and utilities to a wide array of, well, education being one, just a wide spectrum of how people can work together to get focused and come out with more than perhaps they would not working together. So that was again encouraging. That's something that we're looking at here in Valdosta to see what opportunities exist. So that was the highlight of the summit. It was interesting, and certainly if anybody would like to attend that next year, we would be happy to do so. It was a different conference. There weren't as many educators there as I anticipated, but even with the absence of that presence, there was still a big topic of discussion. Summer school, we're about just a few days away from wrapping up, and I want to again thank our principals for leading us through another, 15, 19 days or so. Is that what you called it? Indeed. The 20th day is even better, right? So we appreciate all you've done and to extend that learning and employment opportunities for our students and teachers respectively, and glad that it went smoothly. So hopefully we'll get our week wrapped up, and then next week we will wrap up the year with some professional development training for our students, or for our teachers rather, and then wind down the year for our academy team. That training next week is going to be focused on Leader in Me. Make sure I didn't go backwards. Leader in Me training for our teachers, and then at the end of summer we have a math training where teachers are coming in. So we certainly appreciate that extra time and effort to train up our teachers. Summer projects are underway. We obviously will pick those up after our students clear out and our teachers clear out. Cleaning of the buildings and floor maintenance is underway at all buildings, and we're reported to be on track. We certainly appreciate the hard work of our custodial staff, maintenance crew, as well as our student workers who are helping get things ready for learning next year. This weekend, again, I will be out of district attending the Military Impacted Schools Association. Again, I'm excited to have the opportunity to share the Valdosta story on STEM in front of our military impacted schools. NISA, again, is a subsidiary of MAPIS, so it, again, all federally impacted schools on the military side, so we kind of split out in three ways: for military impacted, federal lands, and then Indian lands. Forward to, again, sharing that story, and it's interesting, the time away telling our story continues to gain attention, and there are people that say, you know what, I want my opportunity in my program in front of our students, and Leader in Me is one of those examples where they wanted to seek us out to be here. So hopefully we'll continue to bring home opportunities from that time away. As mentioned in our MSBA report, we do have a new governor, Mike Parson. So far, things seem to be off to a very good start with the appointment of 2 members to our board, Peter Hirschman and Carol Hallquist. Both are considered widely respected for their approach to education as well as their history of service. So we're excited to have a board that's back operational and functional and getting in a position to take care of business. Enrollment numbers for month end: Knob Elementary 369 with 96.09%, Knob Middle School 461 with 95.09%, Knob High School 337, 95.81%, Whiteman Elementary 316 with 93.84%, and the district total is 1,483 with 95.21% attendance. So it looks like Knob Elementary School had the best attendance for the month. So Mrs. Mellon, we want to congratulate you. Unfortunately, she's away attending her specialist classes tonight, so we will have you did. Thank you. We'll send that to her. End of May financial reports. Our balances were $13,748,485. Revenues for the year $17,364,948, which was 95.99% of anticipated, and expenditures were $13,386,038, which was 81.4% budgeted. A couple of updates since this was released. We did get our last major state payment in, and that came in right at around $500,000. So we're going to be, and we had a couple of other small payments. So we're going to be tracking pretty close to that $15 million target on revenues that we anticipated. And then we will also have some good news to share from Impact Aid. We do have another payment in the hopper, which we talked about last month as something that we would expect. And it's I met with them yesterday as well. They said it's in queue and processed and should be showing up here hopefully by the end of the week. So that will be some very good news for us. And I'll probably be coming back to the board requesting some possible budget amendments with this unexpected additional Impact Aid money. I'd like the board to consider investing some of that in our fleet. We know that we have some issues there with our bus fleet, and with Mr. Everett retiring, I hope he doesn't take his bubble gum and take along with him, but it might be a very good time to for the board to look at investing some of those funds. So once that hits, I'll share that with you, but it's lined up to be very good news for us financially. And that concludes my report.
Okay, next up is I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I need a second.
I just have one update as well. When I returned, I had a note from Mark Reynolds, our county assessor, regarding the cell phone tower assessment. I did include a written update on that, but all he left is said that it's all good. The assessments have been completed. They're going forward with board equalization, and you're going to get more money than ever before. So that's a quote, and that's what we like to hear. So,
Ever.
So that's about as vague as what I just said on Impact Aid, but I think my story will be much better.
All in favor?
I'd like to add, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, we had a second, so
I need a second.
all in favor? Aye.
I wanted to throw something in, I'm too late, but I'm gonna go ahead and mention it. Last meeting, there was a $20,000 scholarship given to the school district by the Pikeman family. And I should have said something at that time, but I wasn't aware that it had taken place. The Pikeman family, I just wanted to throw this out there, were landowners and they ran a grocery store, dry goods store is what it was in those days. And, down here at the four-way stop in Knob, and the Fifemans were a very, highly respected family and did a lot for the community. But it was before my time, but, not much. And I do remember the family and the store. But anyway, that was very kind of the family to remember us after all these years, because I'm talking, that store started up probably in the 30s and ran for 20 or 30 years. And it was a good operation. And for those days, it was an impressive store. I have an old picture at home. You might ever like to see it. Pretty impressive.
Well, we actually got that coming up. I need a motion to approve the bills and full board as presented.
Motion to approve bills for full board action.
All in favor? Aye. Oh, extensions. It's okay. And as Tom was just talking about, the Pittman Scholarship Fund.
Yeah, we did actually have this on the agenda, so you've given us a good cue into this. The only thing I would add here, I'm glad to have that history and for the public and our boards that kind of know the story on the family. This actually came from Patricia Baker, the Patricia Baker Trust. So do you have any context on that?
Some of my family members have been in touch with the descendants over the years, but I have not.
Okay. So that's just for information, again, to have a matter of record, and we did receive that in hand and wanted to carry this out. The trustee, we will carry out that scholarship as described in this definition. So happy to have that.
Next up is impact aid eligibility, the heavily impacted aid. This is for discussion and information only.
So every year we receive a letter once our tax levy and local levy is assessed that tells us whether we are eligible for heavily impacted funding. The formula at the impact aid office, they are actually changing how they're considering local effort. One of the issues I think Mr. Bolton asked about Prop C during our budget session and why that's considered local or something along those lines. It's counted in local revenue, but it's actually levied. It's not levied locally. So impact aid is taking a look at that, and they're also taking a look at the local utilities funds and how those are levied. We have typically worked very closely with Waynesville on that, and we have aligned how we calculate our local effort. I don't think that we're into a panic mode at this point, but with the way impact data is looking at that, it is different, and we are looking at what those implications are. But this, I think the last letter I had from last year was 118%. We're at 112. And we're actually going to drop down below that as we look at what's going on with our levies. So, with what I've done, we actually took Joe Kinder from he joined this George K. Baum took him out so we could sit down with our financial advisors at Impact Day to look at this issue and kind of help them understand what Prop C means, and also what those locally assessed. Actually, they're centrally assessed utilities would be the second piece, and then the third piece would be how that impact amendment in our state has caused our downward pressure on our levy. So we have an education piece to do with Impact Day to help them understand, and I know that Waynesville is a little bit, they have a more urgent issue than we do, so we're kind of letting them run that as well, but we're getting our ducks in a row to make sure that if they're, at the end of the day, when we come to a decision, we'll be on the same page and know where we are. So the rest of that story, depending on where that comes out, back in 15 rather, when the board voted their levy increase, it took us up from 275 to 350. And the purpose, as I understand it, one of the purposes of that vote was to ensure that we protected our Impact Day eligibility. In order to be eligibility on our local tax levy local effort, you have to be at a 95% of the state average is the minimum core requirement. If you drop below that, you have a 2-year hold harmless, no impact, 2-year grace period, and then after that, for the additional 3 years, they start stair-stepping that down. So we are, it's something that, something that's new and unexpected, so I want to make the board aware and let you know that we will continue to work through and we'll keep you updated. Good news is we're eligible and our money is in or out as I reported yesterday. And that was information on it.
Do you have what they anticipate to be? How's that going to affect?
So they definitely, from our discussion yesterday, I don't know that their analysts fully understand what Prop C is, and they definitely are not keyed into the ACOT amendment or the centrally assessed utilities. So what our approach is going to be is to very carefully educate them on how those factors impact our local levy and our local efforts. We have a little bit of time to do that, and we're taking a very cordial approach. I know that Waynesville has reached out and engaged with the congressional delegation to try to put some pressure on them to continue to calculate the way they always have. So we've got to have two different leads that we're following to try to get to a new result. But right now, I think it's too early to say, but yesterday was a very productive meeting. It was very cordial, and our analyst that's specifically assigned to have the Impact Day was very open to, she said, I really need this information so that I can understand what's going on. So I thought that was encouraging, and once she gets that and work through that together, then we'll know where they're going. So I feel good about that. I don't want to stick my head in the sand, but I do think we'll have a favorable outcome. But at the same time, the district did vote that up. We didn't have an unexpected levy drop, so there may come a time in the near future where we need to get our voters and explain to them one more time that in order to protect your heavily impacted area, then you have to pass a levy. So we'll keep you posted. We've known that that's a function. We've known what's been happening with our levy. What we didn't know is that in Stride they were going to recalculate the formula. I didn't find this out until 8 days ago, maybe, something like that. So just wanted to make the board aware, and you will be hearing more about that in the months to come.
Thank you. Next up is school resource officer. This is discussion and information only.
I think the concept of a school resource officer has been at least discussed by some members of the board. And I wanted to go ahead, Mr. Moore and I have outreach to work with our security forces on the base regarding approach at Wyman Elementary. We've also spoken with Chief Niskern as well as Sheriff Musselman at Johnson County regarding what they would offer in the way for the school resource officer. And those initial proposals from both Johnson County and Almonster have been included for review by the board. And we can look over the summer at the possibility of adding those positions on. Both positions will be a 100% dedicated during the school year while students are in session, dedicated officer to our school district. The Sheriff's Department did require some additional capital outlay for equipment in the way of a vehicle, which is typical of what I've seen in the past. Our local Mount Monster PD indicated that in their proposal, they would not require a vehicle because during the school day, they have one that would be available. So both proposals, I literally got back and scanned this just before the meeting. It was on my desk from Mr. Kermit and Chief Niskern from Mount Monster Police Department. It would be a new FTE. It's a common practice, not necessarily always in schools our size, but certainly as schools get larger, it's a very common practice to have a school resource officer in place. And frankly, it's probably of all deterrents and actions that the board can take, a school resource officer is probably, if something were to happen, God forbid, that would probably be one of the best assets that we have. We know that buying cycles will matter, and that would be one way to do that.
Do we still have any records from the previous resource officer that we had in the district?
You talking about the DARE officer or
DARE?
That was just a DARE program, so it was a little different than the full-time school resource officer.
I was just curious if we knew if there were.
Chief Niskern probably would have that information.
I'm sorry, I guess she was there and was on site. Sorry, Mr. Berkey.
I was just curious if there was any actual documentation regarding incidents and percentages on hands-on type information.
So I'm understanding outside of the DARE program, she worked, the officer worked more in the function of a social worker per se, and did some home visits and what have you.
She spent a lot of time in this building, and she spent a lot of time with the kids on the playground and such as that. But as far as the actual role, I have no idea. Not familiar.
So she was housed in this building, actually down by the band and art room, and did run the DARE program out here, and most of her responsibilities that she took on outside of the DARE program were more attendance and things like that, doing some home visits with the address books. That's been about 10 years.
I was curious if DARE was going to spend some money on it, or the state had some money set aside for this program, and how it would be issued. Those funds.
We will look and see. I think Mr. Jones said he had some information on that he'll be sharing with us. Aside from our community law enforcement agencies, I know that there was a very involved tabletop exercise at Wyman Elementary about 3 weeks ago or so with General Nichols and probably 60 Airmen. And they're looking at what they would do to respond to the active shooter at Whiteman Elementary. Off of base, unfortunately, they're limited on how they could engage. They could provide some management, as I understand it, but on base, they're going to have a really much closer look at how they would respond to a crisis at their school or school building. So any feedback on that is welcome. We have obviously the summer to make a decision or longer, but you know, maybe the time to consider having that position.
Well, these proposals are one officer for the district.
Yes, sir. Now we could duplicate that. What we're possibly thinking, depending on the position of the board, is we might partner with all three agencies, try to do what we could to get some presence on base with security forces, and then possibly look at a two-person partnership or some variation thereof where we would get both agencies engaged. Of course, proximity of Mount Master is great, but resources during the day aren't quite what they would be from a sheriff's department. Our Safe Defend product that we have installed here at K&E does send out that emergency call to all agencies, and Pettis County is included in that. So that's, you know, if we did have a crisis here and engage that emergency call, everybody would get that notification and convene on the building. So, but again, seconds matter, and that's that type of situation.
So, what is your recommendation?
Well,
Or what do you put that together?
I really would, the purpose of this agenda item is to try to hear if there's any input from the board towards this position. I know Mr. Judd has approached me about the position and wanted to kind of get in front of the board and see what kind of feedback or direction the board had on that. It probably would be the right thing to do unless there's opposition to that from the board.
You mentioned the system in the elementary school. Is it not in other schools?
It isn't right now. We piloted the program over here 18 months ago, 2 years ago. And we're looking at that. The program, the product has actually evolved with interfacing, so it continues to improve. And it's gaining a pretty good market share. I want to say the cost to duplicate that into Mount Master Middle School was somewhere around $20,000. So pretty steep. And then there would be an annual monitoring and reporting fee, and I want to say maybe $2,000, $1,500, something like that per year for the connectivity and network. So we do have a proposal in hand right now. I have not brought that forward to the board, but it may be something that, frankly, if we engage with the law enforcement professional with either agency, we would kind of sit down and talk with them about where best to take the next steps to increase our safety. Hopefully that person could help lead a variety of tasks if we find the right person. We know we have numbering and labeling, and there's just a wide variety of things that we could do to get in place and enhance our safety. But frankly, it takes time and uninterrupted dedicated time to get that done, and the discretion to know what should be done and frankly what's a waste of time.
So would that person also be doing home visits as well, or would that be something, or is it just something where this person's stationed at the school and stays?
Probably both, mainly stationed at the school, but the SRO can fill a variety of functions. Certainly, depending on the purpose of the home visit, we want, if we're going out to homes, we want to have an element of safety there in some cases. So that would be something that we would expect.
And this would be one single person, or
person?
It would be a dedicated person. We did with both of our agencies, we made it very clear that we wanted to engage high quality and, high energy person that, there are some cases where school districts get, I've heard that they'll get a retired on-duty officer that they want out of the team, and we made it very clear that that's not something that we're interested in or looking for, and they both assured us that isn't something that they would do either.
But at the end of the day, are they appointed this person or we?
It would be a joint, we would both have to come to an agreement on who is selected. It would be, an SRO has to remain an employee of the agency in order to retain their law enforcement, not credentials, but maybe that's the right word. Their ability to respond as a law enforcement officer. My understanding is that there are employees, they're not able to do that.
I believe the person who was in that position several years ago now has been worked directly with the fighting the LE security forces. And, I don't know, security council or something. Fighting, but they also worked. She worked with EFS and he was transporting students and staff and, isolated incidents. Western Missouri Health Center and things like that. So, I mean, you talk about a multi-task role. You really did have quite a bit of responsibility.
Well, again, this board or any individuals having any comments or thoughts on this, please let us know. And we'll, again, this proposal from the non-house PD, I just was able to brief over that in this morning meeting. So we'll take a look at that and try to move towards the recommendation.
Next up is a motion to approve the asphalt repair bid from Asphalt Seal Coating and Striping, wrong business, LLC, with the exception of the maintenance shed lot. I'm just checking to see if y'all were out there.
Say that again.
I'm not gonna. And I need a motion.
Yeah.
Still good.
I see that you've got one full proposal and one incomplete.
I left that to Dean to solicit that, and he said he made multiple phone calls, and I want to say that guy maybe didn't get back with him.
Is this something that needs to be done before the field program?
Yes.
And the work, extensiveness of the work is going to take months, weeks.
They're actually pretty fast. Once they get on site, they'll repair the cracks and there's, I don't know the number of days, but weather permitting, they can get in and out pretty quickly.
I'm curious.
They're doing out here, middle school, down along the side of the gymnasium, and Dean is going to work on some water issues as well along with that, those projects.
Make a motion that we adopt the proposal for the asphalt field code and striping as presented. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, Mr. Wilbur. Okay, this is the first reading for the band uniform bids.
So in our rotation for uniforms, it's band is up, and Mr. Hunter has been asking me to get this done, and I'd be ready to get it, because I knew it would be a pretty big outlay. And I really wanted to kind of push this closer to the end of the year to see where we were financially. We are, I think, with what we have coming in here, the year would be in a very good position to go ahead and move on this. The bid does include, if you didn't get a chance to look through, it's an 80 uniform layout, and that size to meet the expected various sizes of our students, as well as additional excess sizes to give us some flexibility. And I did see that both the bids that we received. So a couple of things, we did publish the bid. We also directly, emailed this out to, I want to say, 5 known companies. And it was published in Casey Star. We received back the Stanberry and the Mullen bids. My understanding is Mr. Hunter came in and reviewed both bids Friday, yesterday, and looked through the uniforms, and his preference would be the standard bid. So that is presented for consideration to the board as first reading. If the board did so choose to, if the board did choose to take action tonight, Mr. Hunter, would they be able to turn that by homecoming, do you think?
No, sir, it's about 7 months.
7 months?
This time of year.
Okay. So I would most likely leave that in as first reading unless the board.
One of my concerns, and I've read through this and for everybody else has, is if we put this off for another month, and all we're doing is prolonging the fact that we've got like a uniform.
Bid that was given to us is also, expires July 1st.
So
We're work with an extension for that if we needed to, but yeah, we can just extend it.
how many years, what do we say, it was 12 or the years were longer since we purchased the uniform?
That's, it was, 18, when I took over the schedule, I was understanding it's 18-year rotation, so every 18 years. I think it's
What were
around
the
here for 2000.
when you buy those uniforms, do they tell you what the longevity or lifespan of those uniforms?
I think there is a warranty on those somewhere.
I mean, on the old uniforms, I mean, we're probably way past the false market. They're falling apart.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes, sir.
just to be whimsical.
Yeah.
Are you gonna march in the Knox parade next year to give you? Yeah, this is out of school. We missed that. I'm gonna talk to people about moving that track to the fall, just because I like to see the band marching it.
I would love to do it because it's very difficult to get,
I
multiple groups together, you know.
I totally understand.
I would love to do the best thing, we can follow that, be all of it. So my question is gonna be, do we need a second reading on this? I mean, does the rest of the board want to do a second reading, or do you want to go ahead and purchase these uniforms before we run out of time?
It's been almost 20 years, I believe, man.
Do you know where the the last set of uniforms came from the same company, or how they wear?
The last set of uniforms was Des Moines. Des Moines was the more expensive bid by about $8,000. I've worked with Stanberry, for the uniform. 3 of those will be my 4th time in uniforms. They held up very well. Really like the company, it's a local Missouri company too.
So does this also take care of the flag and the cheerleader? I mean,
Our flag corps are separate. We've got a budget that we use that for.
and when was
It
that?
doesn't include concert band uniform, so concert dress for the ladies, not coat shirt,
Right.
dance for the guys. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that we accept the bid from Stanberry. It's gonna work for you, even, and instead of dragging this out any longer and overextending ourselves past the bid point. So I'm gonna make a motion that we go ahead and accept Stanberry as a.
I'll second it. I have another question. Would $1,000 get them here by homecoming?
I'm supposed to call him if tonight, and I'll say, what do we need to do to get him?
I'd like to know if,
I'll see if we can,
if an incentive would
if there was.
make any difference.
I'm like,
Des Moines did say they could have their survival.
Did the
I got a couple of questions. Is there any other, like a lease type? Does anybody lease these type where you have just like yearly fees instead of?
I'm not aware of anybody that does that.
And what do you think the lifespan of these will be?
I'm not sure, this is a newer material, it's lighter, I'm bad use one for this. It's lighter, it's breathable, but it comes with the same guarantee as the previous wool or polyester uniforms. Like Vietnam. This is what was the new standard, I guess, for.
We do also.
I'm not sure what the warranty is.
We have a sample of each uniform.
I mean, should we anticipate this in 15 years or 10 years?
I'll have them back on the 18-year schedule.
Yeah, these are last.
and what's really nice is that adjustable hem.
But if looking into, you know, and it's not only the ladies, it's the
Yes.
parents.
Awesome.
This company not only supplies high schools or school districts, but they also do colleges, universities, and everybody else.
We need a lot of guys who, I was reading in this proposal that that's machine washing. The old wool ones, I don't believe the word.
Dr. Willett, can you look at that? I'm just teasing.
That looks nice.
You hike
That looks like a very nice uniform.
There you go. Those are very
We
nice.
need you in the parade.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Make that call, sir.
Thank you, all. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, guys.
All right, under old business, we have a motion to approve the stipend schedule as presented.
A few questions on this. I said them to you earlier. It looks like that you're adding stipends for 12-month employees. And I know we have talked about FLSA issues in the past. To me, we have a method in place to compensate employees for extra work via overtime. And that seems like a more logical path than doing something like this and risk a FLSA
violation. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. Because I feel like it's putting the district at risk, additional risk.
When we corresponded earlier today, that last year we talked about the summer school stipend for administrators, which is different but related because we essentially eliminated those summer school stipends in lieu of the compensation which was provided for the full contract. At that time, the board also talked about the summer school stipends that historically have been provided to our office managers that double up on some of their work during April, May, June, and we left those in place. So that was the thinking on this. I do recognize we probably do have some exposure with, it's contested, but at the same time, if we go to a straight overtime, it's going to be, I know when I look at like the web and social media and, responding to some of those things, I mean, that's like it could be 30 minutes at 7:15 on a Saturday night during dinner. It could be a Sunday morning or afternoon. And it's a little cumbersome to start the ticker and stop it and report all that, but I suppose that could be done. Given that the district had the practice of providing those types of stipends, that's why I went and moved that way.
I think I also question that whenever we did that this year for those stipends for summer school for the admin. And by no means am I saying not to compensate employees for the work they're doing. But this does not seem like the way to do this. It seems like we're trying to get away from some rule or law or something. And this to me does not make sense. But again, I want to stress, I believe they should be compensated for the time they are spending on these activities. If that's in their normal duty hour, duty day, then that is covered. If it is not, they should be compensated. And there is a means and methods without this to do that.
Straight time and a half and
Depending on their classification, their job description, and everything. I believe you have ways to compensate. This could be an immediate action item that we can take action on.
it doesn't, no, we don't have to take action tonight. The one so if you look at, let's say, robotics, the proposed elementary robotics and destination imagination stipend for let's say first lane, $2,400. If we're paying overtime, or if we're paying overtime for a classified individual, which we would have been the last 2 years, her hours logged would probably, I wouldn't venture to say, but it's going to be significantly more than that stipend.
Which further actually helps not adopting this, because we knowingly are entering into an agreement that we know violates the LSA.
I don't understand that part, Larry.
Yep.
This stipend is based on a period of time.
Correct, but regardless, you have employment rules that there are state and federal rules of employment that say you can only work 40 hours a week or 8 hours a day, depending on your state and anything. If you work more than that, I believe Missouri is a 40-hour work week, so you can work 3 12s and a 4 and not be entitled to overtime. But anything in addition to 40 hours for a non-exempt employee, you're entitled to time and a half. And that is the Fair Labor Standards Act with some other state laws.
We're saying at risk. So, so how many things are we talking about with this scenario out here? With no overtime.
I don't know that I can answer that.
I put a number in. What's our total action to be?
I have to run it and see. I don't have that in front of me.
Well, it's not pretty well, but I'm curious.
You gotta understand, if we shift on this, then we're talking about all of our non-certified coaches, all of our classified staff that work outside the day, whether it's coaching, sponsoring, running a gate, running a sport block. We're going to be going from a back rate to overtime on those. So it's, I think that's typically why school districts take this approach, even though it may not be in line with OLSA. But when you get down to running a clock and paying, we're going to be paying $30 an hour for waiting to run the clock and work. Do all the rest of them, and that's going to significantly increase our outlay. That goes for game, and we can do it. I just want to make sure that, I mean, there's risk, far less risk doing that, but it definitely is a much greater expenditure. And
that's what it is.
It is, you still have to calculate so where the difference lies in what triggered me is the introduction to stipends for 12-month employees. Basically what we're saying is they've got a full-time job, now they get the stipend for additional work. And you've already filled up their complete week.
Well, yeah, that's their full time employees, that's based on. You got maybe 1 hour a year.
It's less for school, but
The rest of us,
the same line.
but we don't have those full-time employees on a 12-month basis for that many hours. But they're paid full-time.
That's my point.
You're saying they're going over the 2018. But I don't know how you differentiate from the additional duty and being paid the stipend for that additional duty, or getting into the time and a half situation.
So it's one of those things that do you compound your risk today, or do you have to stop? And again, I'm telling you, the flag was for 12-month employees. There you have a certified staff. They are non-exempt, so they're exempt, and so they don't apply. And so that's, I think, the basis of the stipend schedule is based on that. But we are starting to improve out of that realm. And if you notice, most of these are things that are employees that have a normal due day, and we show on top of that. And just as an exempt, that's okay. But non-exempt is not okay.
Let me circle back around with our attorneys, again, under the FLSA, over the last 18 months, it's been a lot of changes, you know, I understand where they were going and they backed off from that, so let me check in with them, and I think that this is, I don't think there's anything here that's time sensitive that has to be approved tonight, so let me see if
There's a couple other issues. If there is a compliance officer that is, I think, intended to be put on an admin position, to me, that further complicates the whole issue that we've been talking about every year for admin salaries. It makes it even more difficult to compare apples and apples. Because the stipend will never be included into the salary, yet some school districts may or may not include that in their salary. So I don't feel like that is a proper time to use a stipend whenever you have a means to justify the salary, to put it in a base salary. It's part of the normal duties of that position should be included in the salary. And then again, I'm going to reiterate that it is not about compensating individual people or not. It is more about the means and methods that are in there. They're not classified in the right classification. And that is the change that needs to be made, not putting the stipend on it as a mandate. It makes it unclear for people going forward, administrators going forward, board members going forward. Try to unravel that. It's very complicated. As I think we experienced back when we were talking about admin salaries. Their salaries, state saying that their contract actuaries, for instance, they got a raise, and we had to flex that back. Very similar in my mind.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we table this particular item on the statute until the next board meeting, and not to affect the current stipend schedule that we have.
I got no.
So to respond on the compliance officer, I understand what you're saying, but that responsibility, as we shared in the email form, it has grown significantly with what we're doing, the amount of time, and it also has been assigned to, right now it's just on in the past, and then with Dr. Robertson, and in talking on the, we're looking to move that again. One of the things that putting that in as a stipend does is it gives the district flexibility. Let's say that compliance officer piece was with Dr. Robertson this year, and let's say she left next year, we got a new director of student services. There would be a good probability that we would pull that responsibility possibly based on workload and initiation to the role. So there's some flexibility that would provide. And, you know, I understand what you're saying, but there are some other considerations there too that went into the thought to put that on.
I think you have that same flexibility because those salaries we look at individually anyway. So to me, you have that same flexibility. You just have to explain it in that context instead of this context. But to me, there is the same possibility there. The other point I want to make is just in glancing through how this was being applied, it does not appear that it was an overarching application of this. That I can think of several other positions that are directly affected by summer school that I didn't see affected by this or personnel issue. And so I don't quite understand why the squeak wheel or what the rationale was behind that, but it to me was very evident that there are more positions that if we didn't have summer school, they would be doing different things during the day. That's to me is how I'm kind of seeing some of this. So again, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to address it this way.
Next meeting, bring back some.
You talked about the possibility.
Well, but this is, as we, I was en route today, we did correspond a little bit in email, and the recommendations here, whether it's a stipend being added to the stipend sheet, in both of those scenarios, these are being added based on requests from individual, from our administration and or requests from teachers that have come up through or other employees that said, hey, you know, it would be very much appreciated. I'm pulling this work, and it would be very nice to be compensated. You know, it comes down to, I mean, a lot of variables. For me, the thing that I'm looking at is, from retention. We have a lot of really good employees in different ways, and frankly, a lot of them aren't making a whole lot of money. And you know, when they come and say, hey, when a team player comes and says, hey, I'm picking up this additional duty and I'm doing a very good job with it, be very much appreciated, be compensated, and I look at that as an opportunity to respond to that and get faith. And so that was my thinking in terms of the approach here with the stipend schedule. The only other function to do that is to increase the person's base pay, and we can also do that at administrative discretion. We were required to adopt a salary schedule, but it can be administrative or board discretion where a person lands on that schedule. But that also carries with it some risk, and an employee saying, hey, I've got 15 years of being a custodian, and Joe Schmo off the street walked in and was placed on 20 years because that's what it took to get him here. That's a slippery slope as well, but that's the only other function I know of to look at wages.
It's definitely a concern to me that you would have people on a type of stipend schedule that are performing particular coaching positions or anything else for that matter and receiving pay for that, and then somebody else possibly doing another program, whether it be robotics or anything else for that matter, for simply nothing, is wrong.
What you run into is you'll have assistant coaches making a whole lot more than head coaches. In some cases. It depending on the
It's
classification.
supposed to be that way either, so.
So we have a motion to table this till next meeting.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to?
Well, I think tabling is the right thing to do. We'll try to figure out an alternative on how to.
Well, I think what it comes down to is, does the board think that is the right direction? I'm not trying.
Well, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from here, Larry, and I certainly don't want to overstep the full-time 12-month employee in a situation where we put ourselves at risk. I mean, I'm not, I completely understand the 9-month employee or the 11-month employee, but like I said, when you bring that up, moving forward on something like this and looking at how this is done, it takes a lot of thought. And sometimes it takes a whole lot more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people to figure out, hey, no, I noticed something.
I agree. And something that was just said, that what Dr. Wheeler just said seemed to be very reactionary to people who make the request. And I would push for more of a systematic approach, that if you are compensating people for work they're doing, then you do it straight across the board to those that feel affected. Because again, I can think of numerous other positions that, for summer school, for example, if it was not in session, then you do something else, or it creates additional work for them. I think that's what they would look at in the summer. So again, I think it does not make sense.
Well, certainly it's important that we do the right thing here and try to get this right the first time. I mean, I'm in full support of our administrators and anybody else that is on this side of this country.
I think it would be, it sounds more like a bonus situation, not a stipend for work. If they are performing at a higher level or something like that, that should be classified or something. To me, this is setting a precedence that may or may not be understood moving forward.
Unfortunately, we do get stipends brought to us that haven't been paid out over the years. In fact, we've done some on collective bargaining where they brought some stipends to us, and then we, through research, we found others that we added onto the stipend schedule just within the last, correct me if I'm wrong, the last 2 years within that stipend schedule when we went through. And they had brought some to us. We didn't know, honestly, you're saying like, we will. And we went back and said, well, if we're paying that stipend, then same thing, this is affected. So what we need is, we'll need a list of those to be able to look at for compensation. Honestly, we don't know what we don't know until it's brought to our attention. Even on this, the Future Teacher of America has been going on for years, since I started here, and well even before that, and it's just now hitting the stipend schedule. Same thing with elementary yearbook. And I do know elementary yearbook was on there, I think it's just getting moved up, but that FTA has been on there. It's been going on forever, but it hasn't been stipend.
Again, don't take me wrong, I'm not trying to say people should
Right.
not that's not what I'm saying.
I'm not taking it that way, I'm just saying that when we do find out about those, we want to correct what it is and make sure that they are getting paid, just as you're saying, getting paid for the extra duties that they are performing within their job or even outside of their job.
Okay, so I've got a motion, I'm sorry.
The other thing, I believe we approved this item that I cannot see on this last. What was that? We did the, I did it for this whole.
I've got to agree with Larry, the way you're thinking, I make me understand where it's coming from. And to fairly compensate anyone doing an additional duty, I mean, part of the military is military, and was it to give you a long weekend? But, at least that was my 32 years experience. They wouldn't, pay us, but they would give us an extra day off. So, I mean, to fairly compensate all of these positions that are tied, you would have to go back and find the hours involved for each position.
There's a supervision site.
I don't think that you can prove that.
I'm just saying we approved last week.
Oh,
Last one, sorry.
Okay, so I've got a motion on the table to, motion to table this.
All in favor?
What would like to do with this? Just to equate that to what I was referring to was an employer with unfair practices. A group of employees got together and took those to a lawyer and they created a class action lawsuit. They happen all the time. And in that, it cost this employer close to $500. It was a systemic application of that. So, us doing this, I believe, increases the number of employees that could fall underneath that, so it can exacerbate what we're already doing.
Okay, next up is a motion to approve the classified wage schedule as presented.
That motion will approve that.
All in favor?
I got a question. This is a correction from last year?
Last month. But yes, it was tied into last, tied into last, yes. It should be, it's the 1819, and there was an error carrying it forward, what was caught last year.
Trying to go back.
So what,
The motion says 17, 18, 78. That's what's going on. And it should be 17, 18.
it should be 1819, and this does reflect the 10-cent base increase approved by the board as well as the 20-cent step increase. And it is for the 1899. I'm going to amend that real quick into a doc so that appears correctly.
So I feel that the question on this side of it,
There was an error in,
was it error in the published schedule or an error in what they actually got?
in the published schedule.
They were paid more than the published schedule.
For last week,
Or last year.
I believe so.
So there's no retroactive.
No, there's no retroactive. They were paid appropriately, but the schedule that when that was, brought forward, it had an error in it. So that was an issue. But to be clear, last year, the 10 cent that was approved by the board and the 20 cent step and those additional longevity steps were paid as approved by the board, and the same is now in the letter of intent this year. So the error was on paper, but not on paper.
So we have both motions. Budget approval for fiscal year 19. I need a motion to approve the preliminary fiscal year 19 budget as presented.
Did you make any changes to what we discussed last meeting? Is that actually in the budget meeting that we had, talk about the expenditure for any gas grant? It appeared that they were budgeted similar to our application. And then
So our understanding was from last meeting that you had questions about the MCAS budget, which Mr. Corn provided in his report. But what I understood the takeaway on that MCAS was that you wanted an annual or a quarterly report as we report.
We have contacted our audit company on this to make sure, and Katie is going back and doing revisions on the schedule, basically based on robotic supplies, and taking those and putting them into an MCAS expense fund, and then the MCAS expense or revenue fund as well. So it will be broken out by expense and revenue by code. So it should change and it should show up in the budget. What I did for you this time was just to be able to show total expenditures, total revenues within my director's report that I sent out. It's not a checkbook. We're not writing it out of MCAS. We pay for it, and I send in a standard form 270 for reimbursement from that. We have about 3 months worth of payments that we have paid out that have not gone on for reimbursement yet, and that's basically April, May, and June. And we will send that reimbursement coming up here at the 1st of July to close out our fiscal year as well, and to get that money back in for revenue.
I brought up that it didn't appear that year 2 was included in budget projections.
Our year 2 expenditures for MCAS, it does not matter if we could literally go in year 2 and spend every dime of MCAS and not take it out 5 years. They are not looking at that piece.
I got that piece. The budget is what are you planning to do? That's what I'm trying to understand. What are you planning to do?
Well, our plan is to stick to the budget that we submitted for MCAS that is on the grant proposal that has been presented in board docs as well.
That's what I said last meeting. That is not in this money.
As far as what our expenditures will be for that, we can add that within the budget.
Are you saying that, what part are you not seeing in there?
So if you're anticipating our application said we're gonna spend $300,000-$400,000 in the MCAS codes and more of the description. You don't see those total out to be 400,000. Even significantly less. So in essence, what it's doing is under forecasting what we anticipate our expenditures.
I did not understand that to be the question last time. I apologize.
I mean, the quarterly thing is, I have no intentions of wanting that or expecting that quarterly, but there is policy that says we give a yearly report. That's what the expectation is for me, is our policy on federal grant.
Right. So we will have that, and we talked about that, the fiscal year will end, and we will, the federal fiscal year, once it wraps up, we will report that back. And our external evaluator will be working in conjunction with our budget manager to provide that annual report.
And I think just for transparency's sake, I will continue to put expenditures and revenues within my board report. As it changes, it necessarily won't change every month. Turn in a SF-270, I will update the board to let them know what we've spent out and what revenues have come in from that piece. I just think it makes ethical sense.
I am not asking for any additional.
I know you're not, but I think it, just for transparency's sake and what is actually happening with that, I think it is a good practice.
Well, I think it's important that we realize that, you know, this budget is a fluid document, and there's changes throughout the school year. We do have to adopt a budget by July 1st. And this is, you know, preliminary budget, but we absolutely have to adopt a budget by July 1st. Right?
Yes. Yeah. I don't disagree, but for every year that I've been on here, I've heard that exact same message at the presentation of the budget.
There's going to be something in that budget probably that all of us can identify that could be changed to look better on paper, but you know, I didn't catch what you got on that, Larry. I mean, and I understand what you're saying as far as how much money is forecasted out, what they're thinking for this. But my motion is still on the table that we adopt the budget.
I need a second. When you this was coming up, we met 5 days or whatever to go over since our budget meeting.
So if we're going through this tonight, well,
If you guys don't approve it tonight, I think to be very disappointed as a superintendent that we're in a budget work session and we come down to tonight, the last meeting of the month, regular meeting to approve the budget, which we've done for 3 years, and the board voted, made that decision to not do that. I think that would be very unfair. That being said, if that did happen, then the board could call a special meeting. I would need to know from every member of the board clearly the reason to not approve the budget tonight, so that I can make sure that at that special meeting that I clearly understand why the budget is being approved, so that I can make sure that that is addressed to the full extent so we can pass that budget. So it would require another special meeting sometime before July 14th, 30th to approve the budget.
And approval tonight, you could have a budget revision literally 20 of July that adds this MCAS expenditure on. And it is that simple.
And buses, we choose to do something there. I mean, the budget typically is going to move and be amended throughout the year. That's very common, and we don't know what our final fund balances are, and what our final revenue or expenditures are right now.
When we look at this budget, there's no forecast there that's going to tell us that a bus burns to the ground, or the whole bus barn burns to the ground, or, you know, 4-H systems go down. I mean, and that's not, to me, it's very difficult to project those type of expenditures. With that, we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know what's going to happen. And running a district this size, there are so many unforeseens out there that can add to overages in the budget, or even, you know, costs that don't occur the way we expect it to. You could come in $100 on some of it. But you know, I'm not understanding why we're not going to adopt budgets moving forward.
I guess from my point of view, I think I've been over during our budget work session and previous sessions. And you have answered this question in the past. I don't believe there is a lot of effort given to this process to accurately predict what we're going to spend. And by no means do I think that is an imminent problem. You look at our bank account, it is definitely not a problem today, but I have said in the past that we need to know where we plan on spending our money so that if anything comes down the pipe, we don't have another overreactionary, which hindsight tells us what happened 3 to 4 years ago. At that time, I believe they were making the best decision they could to try to right that ship because they didn't have the information. But hindsight said it's a little bit different. Part of that is there was a lot of turnover, and I don't think everybody knew where our expenditures were. And to me, it appears that whenever I bring up a comment that says there are numerous accounts negative, we see a budget amendment. And that is a very reactionary approach. We were told that there was a bus in the budget for last year, but I do not believe we purchased a bus. All I'm saying is we make a plan and we work towards people for that plan. I know you have limited hours and when the bank accounts look like they look like that is not needed. I think that is a very dangerous approach. Dangerous long-term approach. That is why I am hesitant.
I believe that what Paul was saying, what Larry was saying, in my opinion, both have merit. But I think the bottom line is that the expense accounts that Paul said, we change every day. We have somebody retire, somebody illustrious now.
Band uniform, $48,000, you know, I mean, it's what you need.
I believe that our expense accounts are being handled properly. I believe that they're being
handled truly and honestly. I don't see the big difference that thrown with a flag. And the only reason I did the second, what Paul mentioned, or what motion, was that I'm trying to look back this right now again. I'm trying to remember where there's a big discrepancy. And as there has been one, I don't believe there is. Believe very well.
So this
There
is
is our time as the board.
We're gonna end this fiscal year with more money in reserves than we've had in 15 years. Our student performance for the last 2 years has topped the region. Our employees have been, we've done a lot of work to compensate our employee segments fairly. We've added programs, we've added opportunities, and, you know, we have added money, and we're spending as was shared in the budget presentation, our per pupil average daily attendance expenditure is where it was back in 10 years ago or so. So we're spending today's tax dollars for today's kids, which we haven't seen, frankly, hasn't been done at that level in over a decade. And again, doing all of that, we're still going to end with our payment this week. We're going to end with the highest reserve balances the district's had in 15 years. The 18 million that I projected in revenues, we're going to be spot on with that, with the exception of this impact aid, which was unexpected. And, you know, I've tried to talk with Waynesville closely about how they budget that, and they budget a set amount, and everything else goes into capital that's above and beyond that. So I'll be, you know, I don't watch every account very closely, but I do look at the big picture, and I try to align that with a whole lot of historical data so that from the board's governance perspective, they can see the trend of what's going on with our district finances. And I think I do that in a fair way. I can't tell you how many hundreds or thousands of account line item changes come in with employees, and a lot of that is in our federal programs. And looking next year, we know that there are more changes right now than we've seen in the past. So I don't want those changes because they don't give us easy trend data to follow. But we do them, and we try to move forward in good faith and reasonable transparency with our monthly board reports to let the board know where we are financially.
Well, the older the ratio gets, the more changes there's going to be. And just foreseeing age and wear and repairs and modernization, keeping up with the changes that are most certainly coming down the pipe every day. Whether we see them or not, we'll see them eventually when they get here. But I feel like our budget is sound and has been. And I believe that what Larry wants to see is a different type of a financial overview to broadcast more. He used the word reactionary several times. I don't go along with that way of thinking. As far as I don't think we're reactionary, I think we're doing our job by fixing problems. And if that's reactionary, that's how every business in the world operates. Real business, regular business, take care of things, normal people and situations. And I believe that I I'll either make call the motion for him again, or I'll second his.
Well, he's already got his out there, so.
Uh,
He's already got the motion out there, so I need some.
Well, we were redoing this, so I didn't know if we needed another motion.
I'd like to say one more thing, and I understand somewhat extent, to some extent where it's coming from. I mean, I see what's in the budget, but I also see the bills, and I also see the daily operations of this district and what it takes to run this district. As far as an administrative level from each building, there's a huge cost out there. I mean, it would be very easy for me to sit here and complain about things as far as district-wide travel or this, that, and everything else that money's spent on, and ask the question why. But I don't feel like it's my responsibility as a board member to micromanage, that is on Connie Morris's team going to Hawaii.
I appreciate you approving.
I mean, it would be easy for Paul, but I'm just one person. But those are the things that I see the overall cost of what that is in a budget, but then I find out that, hey, so-and-so's in Baltimore, and these folks are in DC, and I'm thinking, wow, why did we spend that kind of money? Well, there's always a reason behind that. And it's part of the daily operations of running this thing. So.
Well, out on the table again, when we got done with the budget meeting, he always says his door's open. So when we have these questions, we need to go and talk to him about these. And then that way we're not, rehashing it out here. We need to come to the board with our work done and our homework done when we get here, so it's not taking all this time.
Well, and I have drawn for 3 times now. Well, maybe 2 times now, this will be the 3rd time. I would still like to see a meeting in July for the board and we discuss it. It's just an open forum discussion on how to prevent discussions like this.
Well, the discussions we need discussion.
Well, I'm not saying-
Somebody like Larry will bring up
That's not
something
what I'm
that
saying at all.
I know, that we may not have thought of.
But I believe that a different setting, I've mentioned the park, and, just go out and use one of their campsites, the cafeteria area, and take the books out there and go through them. Everybody talk about what they don't understand, or don't see, or don't agree with, and go right down through the list.
I know that Dr. Wheeler has an open door policy. I've experienced it myself. If I've got any issues, I just go in there and say, well, you got an opportunity to talk to me, or you can do the call and schedule a time. I'm sure of that.
MSBA ties our hands. We can't get 3 people together and talk, or it's an illegal meeting. So that's why I suggest or recommend that we do this in July, after the budget, after the fiscal year, after the contracts, after the hiring, and we go to that style of forum once a year at least.
Okay. I need a second on that.
I second all the motion. You said it was still on the floor.
And vote how you feel.
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to RSO 610-021. 1, 2, 3, 13 by roll call vote. I second. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.